Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Waypoint podcast, Parashah Terumah. Now, I know what you're thinking. This parashah is going to be the most boring. Trust me when I say that you're wrong. No word in the Torah is a wasted word. Every detail that we see in the Torah has a purpose, and we can learn from that. And so it might seem, again, mundane and sort of useless to us. There's no standing temple today. We're not trying to build a tabernacle and wander in the desert for 40 years. The sin of the golden calf has not happened yet, but we're getting instructions on how to build the tabernacle here. So that's what we see: the tabernacle, the ark, the table, the menorah, and we'll see details about the curtains, the altar, the courtyard, the oils. All of these details, again, are going to seem mundane. They're going to seem like they're very easy to pass over, and I deeply, deeply encourage you not to do that. I implore you to please seek out a commentary on this section and see what there is out there on what these intricate little details mean. There is some significance, some messianic significance, some deeper teaching that you can take away from your life, take away for your life in these details. So, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to my compatriot Brad, who I am confident has prepared a lesson that is exactly that. So, without further ado, I present to you Bradley.
Hello, everyone, and allow me to personally welcome you to this week's Waypoint. My compatriot is right. This week is one that seems like it's very boring. The instructions on the dimensions of the temple and each of the different aspects that goes into the menorah and the Ark of the Covenant, what have you, it seems very mundane. But there are some small intricacies here, some small details that are worth straining at. They're worth taking a closer look at because in many ways, some of these details give us indication on things that have already happened in the Torah, things that we've already discussed once before, and maybe help us to view those things and our current status, our current situation in another way. So for this week, chapter 25, verse 20, is where I want to focus most of our attention. This is it's in the instructions on how to build the Ark of the Covenant. And this verse in particular is about the Keruvim, right? How they were supposed to be facing one another with their wings spread high, and they would be over the top of the Ark of the Covenant. And it's important for us to remember what is in the Ark of the Covenant. And the Keruvim help us to identify the intention of what is going to be held in the Ark of the Covenant. Because it forces us to ask the question, why Keruvim? All right, why would Hashem want Keruvim there? Where have we seen them before that we could derive an answer to this question? And one of the obvious answers, and Rabbi Foreman at Aleph Beta has a few lessons outlining this with a beautiful commentary and conclusion to them. But one of the obvious answers is in Genesis 3:24, where Hashem sets the Keruvim with a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. Now, if we were to take that, and some of you have already seen a little bit of my commentary on Genesis, where I'm going through Genesis and giving kind of a candid commentary as I read, that the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil both are representations of the Torah, right? And what we understand is that the testimony that Hashem will be giving will go into this, the Ark of the Covenant. And so this testimony, which at this point we understand as being two tablets. So again, you have two trees, two tablets. There's carryover imagery here. Will go into this Ark of the Covenant, and these same Keruvim are guarding the way to it. But there's a notable difference, right? These Keruvim do not have the flaming sword. I'll get to why that is in a minute. What I really want to focus on is the dynamic of understanding the commandments, the Torah, this testimony that would go into the Ark of the Covenant in its relation to the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because we understand that Adam and Chava were not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and a lot of people treat that as though it's a standalone absolute. But this is not something necessarily that the Torah says, and the Torah leaves many open-ended commandments that are later altered. One example that stands out is that Hashem does say that all of the trees and the fruit that they bear, the greenery of the land, would be for food, but he never says that they have permission to eat meat. But later on, we do see that permission is given to eat meat, so it's not a standalone absolute that they were never to eat meat. In this aspect, what do we learn about the temple practice when it came to approaching this mercy seat? There was a proper time and place, right? There was a proper time and place which you could approach this sacred area being guarded by the Keruvim. Unfortunately for Aaron's sons, they found this out the hard way. And there's another lesson in that in and of itself. So likely also there was a proper time and place, right, for the tree of knowledge of good and evil to have been partaken of by Adam and Chava. And this is carryover throughout, because Hashem wants a relationship with us, and he wants to be able to commune with us. And the communion that was lost when Adam and Chava ate of this tree at an improper time, in an improper context, with the improper intentions, that communion was lost, but it's preserved in this system, in the ability to approach Hashem in this temple, to approach these Keruvim who are not wielding flaming swords. And that in and of itself is an illustration of Hashem's mercy, and why this is called the mercy seat. Again, Aaron's sons, and kind of to tie this all together, the proper time and place is important, but the proper intention is important. That's why I specified that prior with Adam and Chava, that even that was not in its proper context. The intention, the heart was not there, because these both have to be in tandem with one another. For Aaron's sons, the proper heart was there, it was the proper spirit, but it was not the proper time, and they were consumed by it. You could almost say that this reckless love, right, unrestrained fervor for Hashem, chesed absent gevura, for those of you who are studying Tanya, this resulted in a total loss of the self, and this is not what Hashem wants. As beautiful as that may sound, right, to totally lose oneself in Hashem, this is not what he wants, because we can only serve him if we're here. We can only carry out the mitzvahs if we're here. We can only do service for him while we're here, right? So there is a necessity for the restraint of knowing the proper time and place. Conversely, we have another example of the opposite, right? With Cain and Abel. For Cain, the time and place were correct, but his heart and his intention were not, and so his offering was not consumed. And I find an interesting shift there. For the sons of Aaron, they were in fact consumed, and their heart was in the right place, but it was not the right time. Whereas for Cain, he brought an offering in the right time, but his heart was not in the right place, and so it was not consumed. That's something I may put a little further research into. I didn't necessarily have the time this week. But Hashem still desires this communion with us. And while he set his cherubim to guard the way to this Torah, he didn't set them with a flaming sword. Hashem made a way for at least part of this communion to be possible, and he didn't condemn mankind to the complete death of never having this communion with him again. The Torah, from the very beginning, is the story of Hashem's mercy right from the beginning, and this is something that we actually learn directly from this example of the cherubim in the construction of the Ark of the Covenant. So I think that's something we can certainly be ever grateful for. This is a reason for having a constant mind to know, to constantly focus on the things of Hashem, to have them as frontlets for our eyes, so to speak, to have the commandments at the forefront of our mind, so that we're always mindful that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with the proper heart, but in the proper time also. And that's really all I had for this week. So I will go ahead and pass this off back to my compatriot. Thank you.
Hello again. It's me. So, thank you, Bradley, for that beautiful message. So now for, I guess, my closing thoughts. Now, Bradley has this tradition. It's not my tradition, but sometimes I steal from him in his traditions. And his tradition is to use the Haftarah as a way to link it in. Now, this Haftarah is from First Kings. Excuse me. It's chapter 5 and basically chapter 6, depending on your individual Ashkenazi or Sephardi customs. It might go on into Second Kings. But for the most part, I want to focus on First Kings. So there's an old story when I was reading through the Haftarah. I found this interesting little story from like, it's like a sort of folklore, a midrash, if you will. It does not act as a midrash, but it can be found in the midrash. But when Solomon was going to build the temple, which is what First Kings 5 is basically about, and that's how it ties into this week's Torah portions, because it's about the building of the tabernacle. And Solomon's here getting ready to get set up and build the temple. And so the story goes a little bit like this. When he was going to build the temple, he actually did not know where he was supposed to put it. And so he reached out to the Almighty in prayer and asked, give me your guidance. Where do you want this to sit? You said it would be in a place of your choosing, so choose it. Show me where it is. And he was basically told to ascend Mount Moriah in the dark of night. Puzzled by the riddle, he was like, okay. So he goes up to Mount Moriah. He sort of sneaks up in the middle of the night, and he finds two brothers at the top of this mountain. Now, these would be Araunah and Araunah the Jebusite. And so he had apparently, according to this tale, they were brothers, right? So they were two brothers, and they were setting up sheaves of their harvest. It was after the harvest, and so they were dividing up and bundling up all their sheaves. Now, one brother had a large family, a wife and like 7 kids or something. And the other brother was alone. He had no wife, no kids, nothing like that. And so in the dead of night, as they were, as they were done wrapping up their sheaves, he noticed, Solomon did, just sort of hiding. He noticed that one brother with the many kids had taken up a whole bundle, and he brought it over to his brother's stack, and he dropped it, and he left. And then a few, maybe hour or so later, the first brother with no kids or no family comes and he pulls a sheaf, a stack, and he puts it in his brother's pile with a large family. And puzzled by this, what's going on, the next day he calls those brothers up into essentially his office. And he's like, explain to me what's going on. And so the brother with the large family explains. He says, my brother has no sons to take care of him in his later years. I have many sons. I'll be taken care of. Someone is going to care for me. And so I wanted to give him just a little bit of extra something from me because he has nobody to help him in his later years. To which the brother with no family, when he was asked, he responded to King Solomon, well, I am just me. I'm easy to take care of, and I don't need everything that I have. And my brother has a large family, and he needs more than I do. So I give him a sheath from my pile to him to help support his very large family. And Solomon took that as a sign from God that this baseless love was exactly where the temple needed to be built. And I just love that story. That's a beautiful story, that they were trying to outlove each other in a way, a sort of reckless love, if you will. Thank you to my compatriot Bradley for reminding me of this beautiful story, and taking this, the cherubim from his message are looking towards the tree of life. And they were placed ultimately on the spot in which this beautiful act of brotherly love happened all the time. And they are guarding that. And that is what the Torah is. It is, this tree of life is showing us the way to baseless love, for lack of a better term. And I think that is an excellent thing to take away from this week. That the cherubim are no longer facing away and guarding our access. Instead, they are welcoming our access so that we can have this guidance and use it to bring about love to everyone baselessly, in such a way that we bring heaven down to earth in a very real sense. And by doing that brought the temple to be built in the place of Solomon's choosing. When we do that, our bodies are a living temple, so to speak, a living altar. And so when we do that in our daily lives, we build the temple where we are in our own little bubble. Right here, we influence the world. And so take that into the week. Thank you once again, Bradley, for his beautiful message and for reminding me of that wonderful story. And I hope you guys loved it too. Please, if you like this message, hit the subscribe button, bless the like button. We really appreciate all your guys' support. And we will see you guys next week. Shalom. Special thanks to this month's Patreon supporters.